Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's morning now, anyways, at the time of this recording. Gonna try and do it before I head off to work. So you may hear a little banging, maybe a door close here and there, because, we live in a trailer. And my beautiful wife has to go to work too. Anyway, that's just, I'm guessing Brian, the amazing producer, will probably filter all out, and nothing that I just said will make any sense to you anyway. But that's okay. At least you know. At least you know. Now, when we left off last week, Gideon had been, he interacted with the angel of the Lord. He snuck out at night with 10 servants to destroy the altar and the Asherah pole that were in his yard. And in the morning, remember, all the people came and they were like, we need to destroy them. And his father just basically said, listen, if Baal's going to defend his altar, then let Baal deal with him. And if he doesn't, then I guess we know that Baal really doesn't, isn't who he claims to be. And the townspeople were good with that. Now, remember, they worshiped Yahweh as well on the side. Baal was the dominating one at this point because they felt as though Yahweh had abandoned them. But I'm sure in all of the commotion, Gideon explained to everyone why he did it. He probably said, because I met with the angel of the Lord. He explained to me what needed to be done. I decided to go out and do this. So I did it at night, for obvious reasons. And I was afraid this would happen. And then people were like, oh, all right, well, we'll see. We'll see who's going to be in charge. But I think at some level, because of what goes on in the next verse, which is verse 32. So because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him the name Jerubbaal, which basically says, let Baal contend with him. Well, we're leaving this up to the will of Baal. And then in verse 33, it says, now the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Now, there's time involved between those two verses. Something shifted. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking it was Gideon and his position or his claim to have talked to God and his burning of the altar and the Asherah pole. There's something there that shifted because the Midianites, if you remember, they were coming and going and getting what they wanted anyways. They were pillaging and acquiring and doing whatever it is that they wanted to do in the land of Israel. So there was really no need for war. Like, I don't know. I don't know specifically what shifted. It is my guess that now there was a leader who was not a worshiper of Baal, who was possibly gathering to himself other discontented people, and they were willing to do whatever Gideon said. That's my guess. But Gideon, for many people, Gideon is considered a a less than enthusiastic leader. He was put in the spotlight. He didn't remember when the angel of the Lord showed up. Sorry, I just did air quotes and it dawned on me, you have no idea I did them. So now you do. When the quote angel of the Lord showed up, he was like, hey, Gideon, you mighty warrior. But Gideon was hiding, and he was trying to supply basic necessities for his family. Like, he didn't see himself as a mighty warrior, but maybe maybe now he does. Maybe he's starting to, I don't know, step into his identity, which is a powerful thing for anybody who struggles with who they are or what they're called to be and where they're called to be, and then they're starting to see it. Maybe he made some calls. I mean, clearly he made some calls out because it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon and he blew his trumpet summoning the Aberizites to follow him. He sent out messengers throughout Manasseh, calling them to arms, also to Asher, Zebulun, Naphtali. So that they went up to meet them. So they all got together, basically. That's all time, right? But that also speaks to previous connections that Gideon has started to make amongst the leaders of those various tribes. He said, "Hey, if we go to war with the Midianites, if you guys want me to lead you, then we probably need to put together some sort of an alliance." And these guys were willing to do it. Now maybe he waited until the Midianites and Amalekites had gotten together and decided to come to war, but I don't think they would have gone to war. There was just no reason for them to want to go to battle if all Gideon was going to be even if he was just going to be a figurehead. If all he was somebody that everybody was angry at because he burned down an altar, then there was no threat there. You don't put together an army if there's not a threat. So they see a threat, and I think it's because Gideon's starting to put together an alliance. Words getting back to the Midianites, hey, these guys are getting restless. They're getting, they're starting to communicate. They're putting together an alliance. We probably should go crush them now. So trumpet sounds, which is, I don't know, modern day email goes out. And people showed up. And they show up evidently at a pre-planned place. And they're starting to gather supplies, talk about a plan. And Gideon does what he's most famous for, right? Gideon says to the Lord, "If you will save Israel by my hand, as you promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all of the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And as that happened, Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung it out with the dew, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to the God, "Don't be angry with me, but let me make one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece, but this time make the fleece dry and the ground to be covered with dew." And that night God did so. Only the fleece was dry and the ground was covered with dew. Now, I don't know about you, but I've heard this preached on so many times, the great fleecing of heaven. That was horrible. It was a bad joke. I know it's a bad joke. Well, it's like 6:15 in the morning. So, or maybe 7:15 in the morning. It was kind of a joke. All right, forget it. Anyways, so this is the fleece test. And I've heard it both ways. I've heard it done where this shows his lack of confidence, his lack of leadership. He needed to be reassured that God was with him, that God was going to come through. And after one reassurance, he was so unsure of himself and lacked such character and leadership that he needed a second one. And God did it. And God came through both times. I don't know. I mean, is it good leadership to ask for assurance from God after he's given you his word? I do understand where some people come at it and say, well, there's a lack of trust there because God gave his word. Yeah, but this is kind of a big deal. I mean, I appreciate God reassuring me on this current journey where we're in the RV and, we believe he made some pretty clear promises before we hit the hit the road. And so far, we've yet to see those promises come through. But that doesn't mean he hasn't been good, and that doesn't mean he hasn't been, loving and kind. But he does. He assures us periodically. He does send a word. He gives a sign or whatever, and it's like, yeah, we're still okay. He's still with us, and we're not. We haven't missed anything. So I do understand. I do. I mean, here's Gideon. He stepped forward. He believes it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. So whatever the idea was to put together the army, he believes that's God's plan. He's like, all right, so I'm going to do this, and he starts to do it, and people start showing up, and now they want him to lead them, and he's thinking, I need some help here. I need to know what I'm doing here. So he goes to God and he's like, can you just give me a word of encouragement, a word of assurance? And God does it. That's what I love about the Lord. He does do it. And I know that there are people who will immediately, respond with, well, I ask him for assurance every day and he doesn't show it. I don't know your specifics. And I'm not saying that you're not telling me the truth. I'm not. What I would want to know is have there been, I don't know how to say it. Are you sure he hasn't given you assurance and you just don't like what he's saying? Or maybe the language he's using is one that involves you doing a little bit of work. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is God came through here and he has yet to not come through as far as me and my life. Not saying that my life has been easy. Trust me. This has been years on the road. Not easy. He's been good and we've had good times. I mean, we spent a whole year living on a tropical island. Well, I could never have afforded to live on a tropical island for a year. I mean, the rent in that section of the country is insane. Even if I wanted to. So he's been good, but that doesn't mean it's been easy. So, anyways, Gideon gets his assurance. Goes down in the morning, the first day. The ground is dry. I'm sure he's noticing this on his walk down. He gets all the way to the floor where he put the fleece. He goes in, it's dry. Everything's dry. Picks up the fleece and it's soaked. I don't know if you've ever picked up a soaking wet wool blanket, but they are heavy. So this is a sheepskin. This is heavy. The water is all in there. When he picks it up, it just runs out the bottom like a rug. And then he ends up wringing it out. He makes a big old bowl of water and he's like, wow. All right. No doubt what happened. He's like, okay, God, can I have one more? Tomorrow, can you do it this way? I'll flip it. Gets up in the morning, walks out, and the dew is just, it's all over his sandals, his feet, the bottom of his coat. The dirt and mud are kind of kicking up and they're sticking. I tell you, I know this because I don't like dewy mornings. Anyways, you get out there, your shoes are soaked, your socks are wet. It hasn't, it's not raining. It's like, oh my word, can we? And I have a dachshund, a long-haired dachshund, as a lot of you know already. His name's Zacapa. He is currently in his perfect position. He loves just sitting at my feet while we do these things. So when he walks, right, he's like a mop. What do they call him now? A Swiffer. He's like a Swiffer. He just, oh man, he comes in soaked. His chest, the bottom of his belly, all his paws, his backside, just all the fur is soaking wet because of the dew. So anyways, I get these thoughts when I see that Gideon walked down there and the ground was wet and the fleece was dry. I picked it up. It was light and fluffy and he probably ran his fingers through it. And he's like, wow, all right. So clearly we're going to do this. And God's good like that. So then we go to chapter 7. This is kind of a weird, position to put chapter 7, right? But as you know, there were no chapters and verses when the originals were written. It was just a story, and people just read it. And there's all kinds of legends as to where the chapters and verses came from. My favorite was that there was a monk who was assigned to separate chapters and verses, and so he got on the back of a horse or a donkey or whatever, and it didn't have reins on it. He just sat on the back of the horse, and the horse went for a walk down a path. And every time the horse stepped on a rock, it was a verse, and every time he tripped on a rock or kicked a rock, it was a chapter. And that's how he divided the Bible. I don't know if that's true, but I always liked that legend. I just thought, yeah, because honestly, that's about as much sense as a lot of them make. Anyway, oh, I'm sure there's some academic that will hear this and be like, no, Bob, I know exactly why it was the way it was. And you know what? You're probably right. But I like the legend. So here we go. Chapter 7, early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. And the Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into your hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone that trembles with fear can turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 20,000 men left, and 10,000 remain. So they all come to this area, right? There's 30,000 men. It's not as many as the Midianites, but we're good. And then the Lord says to Gideon, listen, if I let you go to battle with this many guys, you're going to think that you won the battle. That's not the goal here. The goal is for me to do a miracle. Now, when I read this, what I see is God is saying to Gideon, the goal is not for you to kill people. The goal is for a miracle to occur, for the Midianites to be broken and go back home, and for you to be released from their oppression so that you can be free again. Because that's what love does. It creates freedom. Midian, they have their own problems with their own God and their all the not kingdom of heaven that they have to deal with. We're gonna let them reap what they've sown, and we're gonna put you in a position to draw people to me. That's what I believe God is setting up. He's setting up an opportunity for freedom. Now Gideon gets to this place. He has 30,000 people. God says, there's too many people. If you go to battle with that many people, basically you're going to go to battle and you're all going to think that you did this. I don't want that. Tell everyone who's afraid they can go home. 20,000 guys leave. Now, I imagine at some level there's some peer pressure on that, right? There's guys who are afraid. They do not want to do battle. They were conscripted by their king or by the leader of their tribe through an agreement that they had made with Gideon. They're already afraid of the Midianites, all that kind of stuff. So they're like, yeah, I'm out. And then there were their friends and their relatives who were like, well, I guess I'll go with you. Sorry, obviously, talking here in the morning, I've got stuff in my throat. So all this is going on. 20,000 people leave. This is not again, for me, I see time. This probably took several hours for get that many people all packed up and walking through camp. Other guys, I'm sure, had other reactions to them. Some of them mocking them, some of them cursing them, and some of them looking at how many people were leaving and going, now I'm afraid. Like, we had a fighting chance with 30,000 people, but look how many people are leaving. Look how many people are left. And I know, 10,000 people is a pretty good group of people. I don't know if you've ever been in a 10,000 seat auditorium. I have. And there's like, I guess there's like churches that have that many. Anyway, so they're looking around. I'm sure some people left because, well, a lot of other people left. They're like, yeah, we're not winning this. I'm out. So when that's all done, the Lord says to Gideon, there's still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. There. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say that one will not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water, and the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps, and those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from cupped hands. All the rest got on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand. Let all those others go home. So basically, what we see is that 6,000 of them, in essence, laid down or bowed down to the water. And whether they cupped their hands or drank directly from the river, that's how they did it. And about 300 men knelt on one knee and brought the water up to their mouth, which, I've heard lots of stuff about. Now, there was the drinking water test faced out above both normal. Oh, yeah. Yeah, both these positions are normal. Like, it wasn't like lapping water, getting down on both knees and bending toward the water was like this rare thing. As a matter of fact, most people did it that way. Now, some see it as a military deal. Those that knelt on one knee, their sword was ready. They were still ready with their sword, that this was a military position. If you're only on one knee, then you can spring up a lot faster. But if you're on both knees, bowing down to the water, you're more liable to get, shot with an arrow and not see it coming, that sort of thing. And there's probably some truth to that. Some see it as a prophetic, that by bowing down, they were showing that they were not ready, that they were submissive, that they weren't keeping an eye out. They weren't good watchmen. And I suppose, there's prophetic things. You can always find prophetic things regardless. You can find it, in the way that the stoplights work. You can, whatever. The speaking of the Lord is continuous. So you can always find stuff to see. I just think God was looking for a supernatural victory. That's what I think. That's what he told them. He's like, you got too many men. We're going to whittle this down. We're going to whittle it down some more. You ever whittle? I've whittled. It's such a weird word, isn't it? I mean, you're basically just scraping thin layers of wood off of wood. Some people carve, and that's pretty impressive. Whittling, I think, is more so you're just kind of scraping. It was a way to waste time. It was a way to make up, mark time, whatever. When you were sitting, guys would pull out little pocket knives and they would just whittle. My dad always carried a pocket knife with him. One of them was bigger than the other. I guess he had two of them. One of them was really small, almost like I think he called it a pen knife. Like it was just really thin and small, and man, you could hardly see it. Easily forgotten, but he always carried it with him. And then periodically he would whittle. He'd just get a stick. We would have to wait for something. My dad painted lines in parking lots, so sometimes, I mean, there was always things to do, but sometimes we literally just had nothing to do. We had to wait for a shop to close, and he would whittle. And I've done it. I don't know if it necessarily captures my imagination, but I've done it. I make a sharp stick. It's kind of fun. Stab stuff with it. That was, I did that a lot when I was a kid, whittling spears. Anyways, sorry. We're whittling down. I guess it means God was slowly removing excess. But he was getting down to a point where it would only be him that would get credit. He was looking for a supernatural event that would draw people to the Hebrew God. He was looking for an event that would draw people away from Gideon and back to him. Gideon had done a good job of breaking down the altar and the Asherah pole. He'd gotten people's attention, but now people needed to turn back to God. And miracles are a great way to get people's attention. I've been in places where miracles occur, and it is, you just walk away in awe. And I believe that's what God was setting up. He was setting up a massive supernatural encouragement, not just for Gideon, but also for the nation. So 300 of them are left. He takes them, he sends the rest home, but he keeps the 300. He took over the provisions and trumpets and others, and now they camped at Midian, and they laid below him in the Midian lay below him in the valley. So basically, he was able to get the high ground. During that night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up, go down to the camp, because I'm going to give that into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant and listen to what they're saying, and afterwards you will be encouraged." So he and his servant went down to the outposts of the camps. The Midianites and the Amalekites and all the eastern peoples that had settled in the valley were as thick as locusts. That means there was a lot of them. Their camels could no more be counted than the sands of the seashore. Also an exaggeration. It just meant there was a lot of them, and probably not a lot of foot soldiers. They were probably all riders, which was more intimidating. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling his friend, "I had a dream. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midianite camp, and it struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed." His friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands." Now, I'm really? That's what they came up with? I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking that there's probably more one way to look at this dream, but obviously, as we know from the previous verses, the Lord was like, "You want to hear how scared they are? You want to hear how much I've already given them into your hands? Like, just go down and listen. If you're in any way unsure about this plan, go down and listen, because I'm thinking the plan is already in place." He brought the provisions, he brought the torches, he brought the vases. Like, he's got it all. He's got them all, which is where, he got it all together, and they moved to the hill, and the Midianites were down in the valley. So he goes down and he hears this dream, and the Midianites are like, "Oh my gosh," like everything is from as far as they're concerned, everything's pointing to the fact that they're going to lose, because the God of Israel is back on the move. So when Gideon heard the dream and the interpretation, he bowed down in worship, and he returned to camp, and he called out, "Get up, the Lord has given Midianite camp into our hands." So I don't know if you've ever snuck around at night, but it's not easy. You have to be very mindful. So I would imagine the trip down the hill, was it rocky soil? Probably not like desert rocks, but I don't know. You can't go downhill easily, quietly. It takes effort. You have to be mindful of every step, and you don't have a flashlight. It's the middle of the night, and you're headed down into the enemy's camp. So I would imagine Gideon walked down there with some fear and trembling, but he was so unsure of going to war with the Midianites with 300 men that he was willing to take that risk and sneak all the way down to the camp in order to hear whatever it is that God wanted him to hear. And when he heard it, he worshiped right there. Like, he basically, probably just on his knees already, just bowed down and thanked the Lord, because these guys were shook. So he gets back up the hill. Again, not something, you don't just run back up the hill or they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, they're here already." He sneaks the way all the way up, and he goes, let's see, got back up. He pulls everyone together. And the Hebrews were waiting for the word, right? This was God's man. This was the plan. Whatever the plan was, that this guy Gideon was going to give it to us. So everything was in place. He calls everyone together and he goes, okay, it's a crazy plan, I know, but God's already given the camp into our hands. Now, he told everybody what to do. And like I said, I think they've already gone over this in verses 19. No, 16. Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, so 100 apiece, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them and with torches inside. Watch me, he said. Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of camp, do exactly what I do. So when I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then you blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon. Now, that's kind of a weird thing to shout. But somewhere in here, I think the reason why this is recorded is because they want us to know that Gideon wants some credit. And at some level, I can understand that because he's thinking to himself, hey, I worked crazy hard to get here. I've done some pretty, crazy things. I've had to, take on leadership where I didn't want to. I've stretched myself. Like maybe I deserve some credit. That's why I think this is in here. But he's like, when the company I'm with 100 guys I'm with, smash their jars and light their torches, blow their trumpets, then you all do the same and shout for the Lord and for Gideon. And Gideon, with 100 men with him, reached the edge of camp at the beginning of the middle of the watch, which means right around midnight. And they just had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets, broke the jars that were in their hands, and of course the torches were there. 3 companies then blew their trumpets and smashed their jars, grasping the torches in their left hand and holding in their right hand the trumpets that were blown. And they shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Now remember, they're not holding swords. They're holding trumpets and torches. No swords involved. While each man was in their position around the camp, the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords, and the army fled to Beth Shedet toward Zethara, as far as the border of Abel and near Tabbath. And Israelites from Naphtali and Asher and Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. And Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country, saying, come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them, as far as Beth Perar. So all the men of Ephraim called out, and they seized the waters, and they captured 2 of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zib, and they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zib at the winepress of Zib. And they pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zib to Gideon, who was by the Jordan. Whoa. So the plan was executed, and it was executed to perfection. Mass confusion in the darkness, fear that had already permeated the troops. The atmosphere was ready for this. As soon as it happened, man, the Midianites freaked out. And in order to escape, they were killing anyone that was in their way of escape. Basically, they were running over each other. They were killing each other. They were stealing each other's, camels. They were knocking each other to the ground. There was just bedlam going on in the darkness. And all they saw were torches all around them. And they, I've heard it said that usually you would have one torch, I think, for every 100 men when you would attack at night. It's very unusual, and it was like one trumpet, the signaler for a group of people was anywhere from like 100 to up to 500 people. So in their heads, potentially, they're looking out. They see 300 torches. They heard this massive crash, which could have sounded like swords being drawn, ready for battle. horses being mounted, like everything within them interpreted what they saw as this massive army attacking them in the middle of the night, and they want out. And anything that moved that was in their way, they were killing. And they were running, and I mean running far. So in all of this, Gideon, I'm sure as the sun was coming up, he calls out for more help. And he says, block their escape. That's what he means, like take the river. Block their escape. Make it so they can't go anywhere. Keep killing them. More death, more death, more death. Now remember, if you remember, back at the beginning of the story, the Lord said, I don't want a victory through large numbers, because then you're going to take credit for it. I want the victory to be supernatural. I want to get credit for this. I want people to be drawn to me. But Gideon called out for more troops. Gideon put together a plan to trap and kill tens of thousands of the Midianites and Amalekites. And then other, obviously other tribes got involved and their politics get involved, and we'll hit that tomorrow, or next week. But I think we see a shift in Gideon here. This was not God's plan. God's plan was to stand and let the enemy do his work. A lot of times supernatural events occur and have occurred in various places. And it's very simple to get caught up in that supernatural event and then say, now I'm going to do more. I'm going to use the supernatural event to launch something. And sometimes it's ministries, and sometimes it's churches, and sometimes it's a political campaign, whatever. But we move from a place where only God was going to get credit for things, and we move into a place where now we are taking control. God, thank you for the startup. I got this. You miraculously provided for my family. Now I'm going to move forward with my plans. This must be your blessing on all the plans I've ever come up with. And now I'm going to execute them, because my dream was to get, whatever, these resources together. And now that you've provided that. So therefore, everything I want to do with these resources must be blessed by you. I think so many times we need, after a miraculous gathering or a momentous, the momentum of a movement. I think we need to step back and say, okay, wait, where have I took over what God was doing? All Gideon had to do was step back and say, all right, great victory today. Let them go back home, and I'll reach out to them in the morning, and we'll in a couple of days, I'll talk to their kings, and we'll see what they think. They're already scared to death of our God. Let's show them what an encounter with our God is actually like. And instead, he gave them an encounter with who Gideon thought our God was like. Because everyone, was trained by Joshua and Moses that God was a God of war. Anyways, enough of this for today. It's been a fabulous opportunity to hang with you. We're going to finish up the life of Gideon next week on the Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
All right. Are you liking this? Are you liking this version of Gideon for some of you that some of you might have never heard before? Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? I do find it fascinating. And again, it just came up today. Somebody was talking to me about how someone's call gets absorbed into their personal desires. And I know I hit on it in the on the episode, but like how many, again, this was a pastor who had an amazing message and a beautiful message, and one that really meant a lot to this individual I was talking to. And they were like, but now like people are bashing this person because their message got muddled into a personal desire to expand that message and bring it to the world. And in order to do that, we need money, and we need platforms, and we need branding, and we need all of these things. And it's like, yeah, the message, I'm doing it for the message. But somewhere in all of that, you end up destroying what it was you were called to do. What Gideon was going to do was effortless. Well, okay, granted, he had to sneak down the side of the mountain, side of the hill, and smash the thing and light the torches. But that was all he had to do. And then after that, the Lord took care of everything. But then he made the next decision. All right, now I'm going to finish him off. Now we're going to chase him down. And so many times I think that happens to people's call. It gets hijacked, probably from good motives, to complete the job, to do the whole job, even though I might not have been called to do the whole job. The part I was called to do was finished. But I wanted to do more in the name of God. Man, how many times throughout history has something amazing been hijacked by the desire to do more in the name of God, in the name of Jesus? Wow. Anyways, wait till next week. Gideon really takes a turn. Anyways, I hope you're enjoying the epic narrative. I am getting close to being done with season 6. I was going to do season 6 on 1st and 2nd Samuel, but I think it's going to turn into too many episodes. I think we'll separate them into 2 things. And because of just as a warning, because I know I kind of made a big deal over the fact that I wanted to do a online study guide and a connection time and Zooms and really kind of do start building a community. I'd like to still do that, but I just don't know, because like I said, I'm really having to find a full-time job. Really, it's a lot more. It's a full-time job to look for a job, and a lot of you know that already. Like, I send out resumes at least 1 a day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And it's tough. It's tough to translate my pastoral history into the job market. Most churches do not want to hire a good God theologian like I am. And many churches that are really looking for someone much younger than me, because they want to attract that next generation. They want somebody who they can really put out there as on the billboards and turn into the next mega church. Anyways, I mean, I think I'm good looking and everything, but probably not going to attract the next generation just because of how good I look. Anyways, but I will keep looking for full-time work, and we'll see how the chips may fall. But at this point, season 6 is well on its way, and maybe season 7 if I end up splitting 1st and 2nd Samuel. And it is coming out way different than season 1, which in essence are the same verses, the same books of the Bible. But man, it's just different. We were really finding our way in that first season, and I loved it. And I'm leaving first season there, but man, season 6 is going to be a lot of fun as well. So I hope you're looking forward to it. I know I am. And I'll see you again next week on The Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.